Hey everybody in the FFBE Global Facebook group, Ask an Old Mog time, and I'm excited about this one. This one actually came from a question that was spawned in a conversation that was happening on a different topic, but it's one that I'm really excited about because we can demonstrate it visually, which is one of my favorite things to do when it comes to trying to teach people how to do different strategies and tactics and like ways to set things up in the game, to take a look at it visually and really see the difference of what you're doing and why doing things in a certain order makes a big difference. And that is going to be learning about how Reflect works and how you can use it in your team when you're putting together a strategy or a setup for a boss. So let's get right into it. The question kind of came up as we were talking about something in another topic, like I said. And this came from YoKH. I often see the terms work reflect for Aerith, and can I know what this means? You know, I'm trying to understand, like, how is this supposed to work? What is it supposed to be doing for us? How can we benefit from using that? And so a little bit of background information on Reflect. So Reflect is a status that's given to either your team or to enemies by spells, abilities, some limit bursts, some items, and there's also an Esper that can bounce magic off of you and onto your enemies. And like I said, enemies can get Reflect too, so they might use Reflect to protect themselves and bounce your magic back onto you. And so you can use this to protect yourself from enemy magic. You can use this to hit enemies who have Reflect on them, because your reflected magic does not get hit by their Reflect, it just goes straight through and hits them. Or there are some really advanced strategies that a lot of people use to try and bounce protective spells off of themselves onto the enemies so that they can kind of last longer while you're setting up your big spike of limit burst damage for long-term runs. So bouncing magic off of your team to do more damage through multiple hits is really an old strategy. This has been around since the beginning of the game. I remember there was a trial at one point that you could clear very easily just using old school black magic Thundaga by bouncing it off of your team with Reflect, and that way it would hit the enemy 6 times instead of just 1 time and do a lot more damage. But when Cetra Descendant Aerith, who I'm just going to call Aerith because I don't want to say Cetra Descendant 500 times. You know, Aerith came out as a premium unit and has an upgraded version of her magic spell, Holy. Now, Holy used to be a single target spell, and it was just based on your spirit, and the damage for it was not very good. But when they changed how Holy worked, Holy in general, as well as her specific version of Holy, to make it AoE and based on how much MP she has, you can do a lot more damage with it, especially since now that it's AoE or hits multiple targets, you can bounce it off of your team onto the enemy 6 times, and so it does a lot more damage. And so to demonstrate this, we're going to take a look at 4 different examples in the game. First, her just hitting the boss with Holy by itself. We're going to do Holy with chaining. I'm going to teach you the timing on it. Holy with Reflect and chaining. There's a little bit different timing, but not really. And then the most bonkers version is Holy after you're applying killers, imbues, imperils, buffs, chaining after Reflect, which is going to take 3 turns to set all that up, but it can potentially be worth it for you if you're trying to do a big spike of damage. So let's take a look. I've got the game right here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up here. And I've got a team of units here, but to really get into it, let's take a look at how Holy works. So we're going to go into Aerith, and if you go into her magic, you can see I've got it fully upgraded. You do have to fully upgrade this, and you can see it has an astronomical MP cost of 1713 MP, which is all of her MP. When you cast it, it's going to consume her remaining MP to deal light magic damage to all enemies. If we press and hold on it, we're going to see that it's spirit based, so you want to have as much MP as you can fit onto her and as much spirit as you can fit onto her with whatever gear and abilities you have. So I've got her pretty geared, not the best you probably could. I'm sure somebody's got better, especially if you've got her at EX plus 3. But 4,300 spirit, 1713 MP, lots of stuff here, whatever. I've got her set up, and this is obviously not perfect, but trying to just set her up with as good MP and spirit as I can. And then I've got some units that are going to help us out with the rest of the stuff. So I've got a couple of chainers, I've got Ling to do some stuff, I've got Rivera to do some stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So you're going to need a couple of things to set up these strategies. One is, you know, Aerith, obviously. If you were playing when she was released in the game, you got her for free, so hopefully you were playing at that time. If you haven't, and you pick Aerith up, you know, now you're going to know how to do some really neat stuff with her. 2 is you're going to need Reflect. You can get Reflect in a number of ways. The easiest 2 are either just to use Rivera, her basic attack, once you awaken her all the way, and you get all of her abilities, she has this one called Harmonization, and it converts her normal attack, right, to Perfect Pitch. Perfect Pitch restores MP to all allies and casts Reflect on all allies 1 time for 1 turn. So all you have to do on your kill turn is just attack normally with Rivera and you get Reflect. That's the easiest way. The next least complicated is to have the Carbuncle Esper in your party. Carbuncle, when you cast it, you get Reflect on your whole party for 1 turn. More complicated versions, if you were going to use Steiner's Limit Burst gives you 3 stacks of Reflect, or 4 stacks of Reflect, which means you can bounce magic off yourself 4 times. And if you have Vivi in your party, that becomes very important. There's also other units that can do this. Marie has an ability that can give your whole party Reflect. You can give people single target Reflect with the Reflect spell. There's lots of ways you can do this. But the 2 easiest are going to be either to use Carbuncle or Rivera, which I'm going to show in the demonstration. But again, all these units have nothing equipped damage-wise, except for she's got her Trustmaster reward. Bradley has a couple of weapons just to have something equipped. Ling's not going to do any damage, but I've got her equipped with some stuff, whatever. And then Rivera only has a Trustmaster reward, just to have it. So the real 3 that are bothering to deal damage are going to be these 3. So to test this, we're going to go into the Vortex and to the training dummy, which you can get to easily by clicking on the exchange button, and town menu, Tower of Wind. So you go in here and it's going to ask you to if you want to fight the training dummy, and yes, we do. So the first scenario we talked about, and I'm gonna have to back in and out of this battle 4 times to show you all these, because I'm gonna be consuming all of her MP to do this, and that's gonna be the most damage possible. So Holy by itself, right? If we cast Holy on the enemy just by itself, we're gonna see some damage. And I'm just gonna guard and knock all this out of the way. So all we're gonna get is Holy's damage. It's got a very long wind-up, a very long cast. You can see it takes a long time for it to come down, and then boom, 1.1 billion. Not a ton of damage in the grand scheme of things. 1.1 billion is really great for some Dark Vision scores, but for a lot of stuff, if for her to do that by herself in Dark Visions would be near impossible. In this setup, we can do much better, and I'm going to show you why. So we're going to give up, because I did use up all of her MP, and that's the whole point. But just bear in mind, so all right, 1.1 billion. We're going to do that again. This time, we're just going to set off a chain. The timing for this is that if you saw, Holy, it puts down a beam of light, and then there's this energy ball that drops. And when the energy ball starts to drop and hit the target, that's when you want to start your chain. Since it's just a 1-hit spell, you can do the old standby Oriole Ray into 2 Stardust Rays on 2 different units. Oriole Ray, Stardust. And then it will make a 100-point chain if you're doing it this way. So I'm going to target the boss, or the enemy in this case. We're going to do Holy. We're going to wait until that ball starts to drop, and then we're going to hit our chainers. So it looks kind of like this. Remember, we did 1.1 billion before. Let's see how much we do this time. We're gonna wait. Here comes the ball, and 100-point chain, and it did, moment of truth, right? 7.2 billion. So obviously, just by getting the chain and the extra damage from our chainers, we did a ton more damage. 7.2 billion. It eats up all our MP, so we're gonna have to back out of here. But that's the impact of chaining, and we've talked about chaining on these videos before. But again, makes a huge impact. Now, That was a 100-point chain. Holy only hit one time because we were casting it on the enemy. And I said before that with Reflect, if you've got multiple people that you're bouncing this off of, in this case we've got 5 allies that we're going to bounce Holy off of, it's going to hit the enemy 5 times. Now this is going to break our chain, so you want to definitely time this right. You're not going to get a 100-point chain out of it, but you're going to see we do a ton more damage. So we went from 1.1 to 7.2. Let's see what we get just by bouncing Holy off of our team with Reflect. All right, and like I said, this is going to require a little bit more setup. We're going to use Rivera to, you know, if I click on myself, you can see right away I do not have Reflect. It's going to be under Other Effects. She just attacks. There we go. Everybody has Reflect now. Reflects magic. Yep. We're going to queue up our stuff just like before. Oriole Ray, Stardust, Stardust. Oriole, Stardust, Stardust. And we're going to target our team, right, by clicking on Alina and then clicking target. We're going to cast Holy. Holy's going to bounce. You're going to see the Reflect. It's going to kind of like put a bubble in front of us. It's going to bounce and then start the animation on the enemy. We do the same timing. When we see that ball start to drop, that's when we unleash our chain. Make sure Elena's targeted. We retarget the boss, wait for the ball. It's going to break our chain, but the damage is going to be astronomically higher. Okay. Remember, we did 7.2 billion just by doing a chain cap. 11.2 billion. So our damage, you know, it didn't get twice as much damage, and part of that is just because of the chain. But again, that's a lot more damage just from doing, you know, one extra step of applying Reflect and then chaining off of the Holy. So we're going to back out and do this one more time. And this last setup, like I said, it's going to be using a lot of buffs and setup stuff to do the maximum, you know, with that I can just with this setup. So we're going to be applying a killer buff. Aerith's killer buff and Rod Imperil skill will work on this enemy because this enemy is technically a human. We're going to use her limit burst as well to imbue the party with light and buff everybody, you know, with the massive buff that she gives. Ling is going to give us a Imperil, and that or a light Imperil. That's going to further amplify the damage that we do. We're going to Reflect, and we're going to chain Holy at the end. So remember, we went from 1.1 to 7.2 to 11.2. Here we go. This is going to take a few turns to set up, but you're going to see it's going to be worth it. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to use double limit. Actually, we're not even going to do that. We're just going to use Wish to Save the Planet. This is going to do a Rod Imperil, right? 35% Rod Imperil, Human Killer, 100% for magic and for physical for all of us. So we're going to do that on turn 1. We're going to guard our attackers. Ling is going to shift, and she is going to give us, just for the sake of doing it, we're going to do we can do triple. We're going to do a break. I don't think this boss can't be broken, but just to prove, you know, we could do a break. We're going to do light Imperil and imbue, and we're going to do assassin stance. Even though we're getting a buff from Aerith, this one is 150. So yeah, we're going to do that. This is even better. All right, there we go. Yeah, so we can't break this boss, but you know, it's got the Imperils. Rivera is just going to guard. All right, turn 2. We've done no damage so far. Turn 2, we're going to use the limit burst. This is going to give us all light, which Ling already did, but we're also going to get a 45% boost to our light damage and these buffs, right? This is very good. And an LB damage boost if you were doing LB damage to chain for some reason or something else to try and cap. But there you go. So, and then we're just going to guard with everybody else, just to do no damage, so we can get the total picture, all that damage just from this upcoming attack. All right. So this, like I said, it's 3 turns to set all that up. And here we are. So we're gonna do the same thing. Rivera is going to apply Reflect to everybody with Perfect Pitch. We are going to cast Holy. We're going to Oriole Stardust just to do a chain. That's really easy. Oriole Stardust. Ling is just going to guard. Doesn't matter. We're going to cast Reflect on ourselves, or Holy on ourselves. It's going to bounce off, hit the boss. We're going to time it just right like we did before. We did 11.2 billion just by doing Holy, Reflect, and chaining. This time we're going to be doing Element chaining, which is going to be even better, more damage with imperils, buffs, and everything else. Let's get it, dude. It's going to break that chain, but it's still going to be worth it. Right? 53.8 billion. So you can see the effect of that is huge. We went from 11.2 to 53.8 billion, which is a massive jump in damage. Enough to one-shot a lot of bosses, and that was the strategy for a while for a lot of budget runs to try and knock stuff out. But that's really how it works. Now, the argument could be made, you know, if Aerith is that strong, why aren't we seeing her in more clears? Well, again, you have to be able to work Reflect into your team. It's not terribly hard. You could use Carbuncle, you could use Rivera, you could use Steiner, you could use different ways you could do it, but not all team compositions have room for that. And plus, you know, Aerith is not going to be useful for everything. Some enemies are not resistant to light. Some enemies absorb light. Some strategies that people use involve, you know, bouncing buffs that are going to make this not work so well. It also eats up all of her MP, so unless you have a way of refilling all that MP, you can only do that once per turn, you know, or once per battle, unless you can get that MP back up to normal. So it does require some work and some finesse, but honestly, for a lot of older trials and a lot of new content that comes out, like to try and clear something in 3 turns, if she can be used, she can do a lot of damage as long as you can work Reflect into your team. And so that's what I mean, you know, when I say work Reflect, and that's what people talk about. If you can fit Aerith into your team to do that, you're going to get a big spike of damage. I'm going to go ahead and back out of here. Hopefully that demonstrates it adequately for us. Let's get back to the home. But yeah, 53.8 damage, 53.8 billion damage, a huge spike of damage. So there it is. There's using Aerith. The next thing I want to talk about is actually introducing a new segment to these videos, and that is going to be called Sharky Suggests. Now you might be asking yourself, who on earth is Sharky? And this is Sharky. This is Sharky. We have Sharky right here too. Sharky's our little friend. He's a hand puppet, and Sharky's going to be making some suggestions to us based on some things that I think you should be doing in the game that are just unsolicited suggestions that are not necessarily based on questions, but Sharky's going to be here to tell us all about them. So say hi, Sharky. Thank you, Sharky. So this week's suggestion of Sharky Suggests is just to make sure you're doing the daily fragment challenge and the daily bonus battle for Final Fantasy X in your daily quests, especially if you're trying to get enough lapis and things. Why am I making this suggestion? Or why is Sharky making this suggestion? Why are you making that suggestion, Sharky? If you go into the shop and you go into Special Shop, which is one of my favorite places to be, you have this section right here, EX coins. You get EX coins every day for doing the bonus battle for Final Fantasy X, and you can use these to buy fragments for NVA units that might be very useful for you. So for example, Queen and Machina, you can use those to buy their fragments and get them to EX +3, so you can beat the Final Fantasy Type 0 Chronicle battle to get the crown for upgrading units. Or Eurasia, who's a very useful buffer, or Summerfid and Lena. Summerfina and Lid, who are very useful breakers and support units. You know, lots of good stuff here, potentially. Cloud can get really high attack. You can buy Transcension Pearls. You can buy Relics to upgrade your Espers. Lots of good stuff that you can get for free with EX coins. Don't miss out on the daily opportunity to get them. We're also getting lots of tickets from those battles. We're getting lots of Lapis from those battles. So don't skip out on it. If you're a free player, if you're a new player, daily lapis that you can get from your watching your videos and doing your daily quests is going to help you slowly build up to be able to have enough to do what you need to do. So don't skip out on those. And then finally, the daily fragment dungeon. You know, I hear people all the time say, oh, I missed a day, and as a result, I don't get to, you know, get EX plus 2 whatever. So you want to make sure you're doing this every day. You know, those 5 fragments add up to 70 over the span of 2 weeks. So make sure you're getting those every day. That way you don't miss out. Thank you for the tip, Sharky. Okay, you can go away now, Sharky. All right, and that's going to be pretty much it for today. I was really excited to have a specific topic to talk about for this video, and I know it went on for a little bit longer, but you know, showing 4 different battles and scenarios does take a little bit longer to get into it and demonstrate, but I think it's definitely worth it if you can learn the timing on that and master that. If you're having trouble with chaining, definitely feel free to check out the chaining episode that talks about how to set up chains and build chains, and a little tips for that if you don't know how to do that very well. But this video did, of course, show you the timing on how to do it. But that is going to be all for today's video, and I hope that you have a great evening, and I hope that was helpful. And if you have questions for next time, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any other tips for how to better build Aerith, how to better build her for MP, or you know, whatever, to get more damage out of her. If you've got more tips for like what other stuff we could add to that last scenario to get better, you know, better damage than 53.8. I'm sure somebody out there has done more damage to the training dummy than I did. You know, so please, you know, let us know, and we'll see you in the next video and in the game. Bye bye.